Today we are going to start Azure Migrate in our AZ300, or you can also say Azure Migration playlist. Okay, hello everyone, my name is Arun and let's get started. So we'll come to this diagram later. I have created this to save time, and because it happens when we start watching the video, because of the time sometimes we skip it, or maybe there are interruption or distractions. So to avoid that, I try to make the video as small as possible, because Azure Migrate is a huge topic and it will get covered in a couple of videos. This is the first one. So let's try to understand what it is and why it is here, though we already have ASR. Okay, so let's start Azure Migrate. All right. Okay, let me make it a little bigger. Cool. All right. Okay, so let me give a little introduction and then we'll talk about the features and then we'll try to understand the architecture of Azure Migrate. Okay, so if I need to say what it is, well, Azure Migrate provides a centralized hub to discover, access, and migrate on-premises servers, infrastructure, applications, and data to Azure. Okay, and it supports almost all kind of virtualized environment like VMware, Hyper-V, also the physical servers, databases, web apps, and virtual desktops. Okay, so let me write this down here. This will help us to summarize, or you can capture it at the end of the video and it would help you to have a quick recap. So it's a centralized hub. Okay. To do what? To assess. First we discover, then we assess. Discover, assess, and migrate. Almost all the environment like VMware, Hyper-V, or physical. So this is what the Azure Migrate is. Unified setup, or the dashboard that you can work upon. Okay, now you guys must be wondering, we do migration with ASR that we have already covered in the previous videos, so what's the difference, right? So well, it's simple. Azure Migrate provides centralized hub for assessment. Okay, and you can also choose other tools which are integrated with Azure Migrate. It's not just the native Azure migration tool, but you can also use the third party. Okay. All right. So we will discuss that, and it will come in future videos if we could not cover here. I think we would not be able to cover it in the single video, of course. It will need couple of videos, so you would understand what all integrated tools are there in Azure Migrate apart from the native tools of Azure. Okay. Now, on the other hand, ASR is a disaster recovery solution. We all know that. But because of the capability of lifting and shifting of the on-prem machines during the disaster, of course, or creating the VMs during the disaster with the help of cache storage that ASR has. So it has that capability. So we started using it for the migration, right? It is not a migration tool, but we started using it as a migration tool. Okay. However, server migration tool or Azure Migrate uses some backend site recovery functionality for lift and shift migration of some on-premises machine. That means Azure Migrate can be agentless or agent based. Agent-based migration is more or less like ASR migration. Okay, so server migration to perform an agent-less migration of on-premises VMware migration is native to Azure Migrate, and site recovery isn't used. Okay, so we can add here something that came into my mind, and it will for sure help us summarize at the end. All right, we can say Azure Migrate, it's agent less and agent based. And agentless is native to AZ Migrate, and agent based is Azure Site Recovery Replication Engine. Okay, uses ASR Replication Engine. All right. Also, third party third party tool integration apart from native. Okay, we also call it ISV, that is independent software vendor tools. Independent software vendor tools. All right, so let's go ahead and see what else we got in Azure Migrate. So in ASR, we had the deployment planner to do the uh, assessment or planning regarding the uh, ASR disaster recovery that eventually we use for the migration that can help. But here we can have some other native tools and also these ISV tools. So we can say it doesn't only do the migration, but you can also utilize this for the discovery and assessment. Discovery and assessment by native and ISV tools. Okay. Now, Azure Migrate actually deploys a lightweight appliance for discovery and assessment of on-premises VMware and Hyper-V VMs. This appliance is used by Azure Migrate Server Assessment and Azure Migrate Server Migration for agentless migration. The appliance continuously discovers server metadata and performance data for the purpose of assessment and migration. This is for the agentless. Okay. Now, Azure Migrate Server Migration provides a couple of methods for migrating on-premises VMware VMs to Azure. An agentless migration using the Azure Migrate appliance and an agent-based migration that uses a replication appliance and deploys an agent on each VM you want to migrate. Okay, hope everything is getting clear now. You may be able to connecting the dots. There are two kind I told you, agentless, okay, agentless and agent-based. Agentless is the native of Azure Migrate in which we deploy, yeah, let me write this down here. We deploy Azure Migrate appliance. It may be a little confusing, but hope you would be able to make sense out of it. I know for me it was Azure Migrate appliance. It is a lightweight appliance. Okay. And this is for discovery and assessment of on-premises VMware and Hyper-V VMs. Okay. And it is also used by Azure Migrate server migration for agentless migration. Okay. So we can write here appliance, which is used for discovery and assessment. All right. And Azure Migrate server migration. Migration for agentless. Okay. And if it is agent based, then there would be different kind of appliance. This is what I was saying. This gets confusing. But hope this will not now. Don't go there. I don't want you to. Now, agent based migration uses replication appliance and deploys an agent on each VM you want to migrate. Plus, I can name him here, no problem. We'll connect it later. Mobility agent that deploys on each VM. I told you this is agent based is more or less like ASR. It is almost like ASR. It uses the ASR, replication engine, but agentless is Azure Migrate native. Okay, we'll try to cover each and every scenario and topic, but it cannot be completed in single one for sure. All right, and it also provides other facilities as well. You can also use database assessment and migration along with this. Okay, that is one of the feature. Database assessment and migration. Okay, with the help of this, you can access on-premises databases for migration to Azure using Azure Database Migration Assistant. Azure Database Migration Assessment. Okay, and you can migrate databases using Azure Database Migration Service. We also call it DMA and DMS. Okay. It is inbuilt now with this Azure Migrate. You can also see few things for the database like data box to be precise. To import large amounts offline data into Azure using Azure database, data box, my bad, it's box, data box. You can see that in Azure Migrate as well. Large amount of offline data. That is also integrated with Azure Migrate. So as I said at the beginning, it's a centralized hub. It has a lot of features. It depends which one you want to use. Okay, it's not like you have to use each and every one to do your migration, but it depends what all. Cool. Let's go and try understand the architecture of agent-based migration first, because we have already covered the ASR in detail. So you would be able to relate it for sure It is like 100% similar. They could be if and but it's almost like that. Maybe the naming convention, something like that. Okay, so let's try to understand the architecture concept first, and then we'll summarize this video. Okay, so to do the agent-based migration, we deploy replication appliance, just like if you can see the OBF template that we do. It is the same thing, almost same thing. So let's see, we have deployed this appliance here. Okay, let me put it here, and for this I put here a replication appliance. This is the replication appliance. Now, just to make you aware, this is a VMware environment. This is the on-premises environment where we have deployed the replication appliance in the OBF template. Okay, just like we do in ASR. And this replication appliance is configure of two components. Okay, which is config server, and when we install it, there is a process server which is always along with the config server. Okay, now if I have to explain what is replication appliance, well, replication appliance is a single highly available on-premises VMware VM that hosts config and process server. Okay, now it is the same thing that we have in the ASR. Config server coordinates communication between on-premises and Azure and manages the data replication. Process server acts as a replication gateway. It receives replication data, optimize it with caching, compression, and encryption, and send it to the cache storage account in Azure. Okay, so once this is what is installed, then you register it with the recovery service vault in ASR. That's what it happened, right? So once you enable the replication, this mobility agent get pushed to all the VMs through process server. Okay, now let's take these in a separate architecture now. Let's granularize it a little bit. So this is the VM where process service has already been installed the mobility agent. Okay, let me put it here to make it more sense. Okay, I'm back. It was an urgency, had to go. So where were we? Okay, we were trying to understand the granular architecture of these things. Okay, so under the replication appliance, we have config server and process server. Okay, we covered this part. And by default, process server is installed together with the config server on the replication appliance, right? And this process server, when you enable the replication, this process server install the mobility service on the VMs that you want to protect, right? And that can be done manually as well. In case you do not have the permission or something is wrong, you cannot push install with the help of process server. You can also do the manually, and you can find the installation files on the config server or the replication appliance. Okay, and this mobility service is something which sends data to the process server on 9443 port. So if somebody asks you who sends the data to the replication appliance or the process server, it's the mobility agent, mobility service. Okay, and it communicates with the replication appliance on port 443. Okay, and now if you have antivirus software running on the replication appliance, process servers or machines being replicated, then you need to exclude few folders from scanning. Okay, folders like site recovery folder or ASR logs folder, ASR folders. There's a huge list that you need to exclude. Okay, now that's how this works, and this config server, this entire application appliance, okay, this orchestrate replication with Azure on port 443. And the process server is something which optimize data, encrypt it, compress it, and send to the Azure storage on 443. Okay, so that's how it is construct. That's how the architecture is. All right. Now let's talk about the performance and scaling. Well, by default, you deploy a single replication appliance that runs single application replication appliance that runs both config server and process server. Come on. If you are only replicating a few machines, this deployment is sufficient. However, if you're replicating and migrating hundreds of machines, a single processor might not be able to handle all the replication traffic. And in that case, you can deploy additional scale out process servers. It is more like if I have to give you an estimate, you can say if the churn rate is more than 2 TB, additional process server is needed. Okay, and if you are replicating more than or 200 machines, more than 200 machines, then you also need additional process server. Okay, or additional replication appliance. Additional replication appliance. And we do have a throttling concept that you can apply on the replication appliance if you want to control the bandwidth. VMware traffic that replicates to Azure goes through a specific process server. You can limit upload throughput by throttling bandwidth on the machines that are running as process servers. That can be easily done through Azure Backup MMC. That is a shortcut you'll find on the desktop of your application appliance, and under change properties you can enable the throttling. Okay, so this is a concept of Azure Migrate, agent-based architectural concept, and here we covered what is Azure Migrate, what are the features. Okay, so that's all about it, and in next video Azure Migrate will continue with other concepts. Thank you for watching and you have a good day. Bye-bye.